Vietnam War was one of the biggest wars in history, and is still a sensitive issue to discuss in today's society. Vietnam War between the US and North Vietnam was a demonstration of the competition between the opposing perspectives of communists and democrats. The factors that caused Vietnam War included the prevention of communism, the unification of Vietnam, and the demonstration of US power. Vietnam War broke out in 1955, 10 years after World War II. There were chains of events that led to the war, but mainly because France wanted to take back Vietnam as their colony after the defeat of Japanese. This was because Vietnam's production of rubber and also rice benefited France in terms of exporting it back to France. However, Vietnam refused and war broke out between Vietnam and France in 1946. Vietnam won and signed the Geneva Accords with France, dividing North and South. Thus, South Vietnam was backed by French and the US, led by Bao Dai, who were all Democrats. North Vietnam was governed by Ho Chi Minh and supported by China and Russia, who were all communists. After their victory, both sides still intended to invade the other. Conflict then occurred between Democrats and communists. In 1964, American troops were attacked in the waters of Gulf of Tonkin by North Vietnam, which then led to US President Johnson created Gulf of Tonkin resolutions in 1965, announcing war on North Vietnam.
The President has asked that the destroyer force be doubled and that an air cap, a combat air patrol, be available at all times on call to it. And as I think you know, he's issued instructions that in the event of a further attack upon our vessels in international waters, we are to respond with the objective of destroying the attackers.
However, the US lost the war, and there were many reasons why Democrats lost. Firstly, although Americans had superior technologies, armies, and funds, they were greatly outnumbered by the Viet Minh, which is also North Vietnam, in manpower. North Vietnam could easily recruit local soldiers as the locals hated the invasion. Moreover, Americans were unfamiliar with fighting in a jungle environment against guerrilla soldiers. Secondly, by the end of the war, South Vietnam tended towards dictatorship as the US took over the war. The instability of the political systems in the developing country caused many riots and people were incapable of working together. As a result, on 30th January 1968, Viet Cong forces surprise attacked 13 cities in central South Vietnam, causing major casualties, which was called the Tet Offensive. After the attack, US President Nixon announced Vietnamization, whereas the US started to reduce their troops in hopes of ending the war due to the many protests in America and heavy damages. Since the US retreated, South Vietnam could not afford technologies and did not have enough manpower. In 1975, Saigon was invaded by North Vietnamese, and the South Vietnam government went into downfall, hence led to the end of the war in 1975. At last, North Vietnam won the war and communism united the whole nation after the 20-year war. There were many severe consequences after the Vietnam War. It had caused over 100,000 deaths of Vietnamese and over 58,000 of US soldiers, and Vietnam was completely destroyed as well. Many still suffer from the traumatizing past today. This led to many conflicts and many anti-communist ideologies. According to a journal from an American soldier during the Vietnam War, it said, "The first saddest day of my life so far. It was time for me to depart from the ones I loved so dear to go to spend 365-day tour in Vietnam, hence show that Vietnam War was not beneficial to either sides." The reason the US was blamed for the Vietnam War was because many young American soldiers lost their lives in a war that did not directly affect America. The Vietnam War was a reflection of the Cold War, and the US was often blamed for the occurrence of this war. After World War II, peace was advocated globally, and therefore the purpose of the Cold War was that the US and Russia could show their power to each other without force, in order to spread their ideology. However, The US broke the silence and fought in Vietnam War, whereas Russia only aided North Vietnam. In secret, Russia wanted to invade Vietnam too. Therefore, by aiding North Vietnam, they could build relationships with them while decreasing China's influence on Vietnam, who were also supporting North Vietnam as well. On the other hand, after Mao rose to power in China and the power from Soviet Union, the US was afraid of the global spread of communism, which they called as the domino effect. US President Dwight believed that once Vietnam became communist, other Asian countries would as well. Therefore, with the US strong military power and wealth, they could promote democracy and prevent the spread of communism. They could also gain trust and prove to other countries their power and seek validation. Thus, the US spent more than $250 billion and 200 million troops, in which 7 million tons of bombs were used on Vietnam, more than all the bombs dropped on Europe and Japan during World War II. Hence, it showed the tension between Democrats and Communists. The irony in this war was that the US was literally destroying Vietnam's village in order to save Vietnam from communism. Had it really caused more benefits or consequences for the Vietnamese? Hence the paradox in which the country of democracy and liberty conducted dictatorship in order to gain power, and it was demonstrated in the Vietnam War. Was the Vietnam War justifiable at all is a question that is still being asked. Many believed Vietnam was a small civil war that would only lead to small damages. However, the US participation caused larger casualties. Although the Vietnam War was justifiable, it was not necessary. The intention for Vietnamese was that they could unite the whole country, while the intention for the US was to omit the communism spread in Asia. However, Vietnam is now a communist country, yet not every part of Asia uses this system. For example, Thailand and Cambodia remain monarchy, while Indonesia is democracy. Vietnam War was unnecessary, as it was only a war where US showed off their power to Russia while using Vietnam as a puppet. Although the US claimed to be preventing communism, the instability of the political system in Vietnam after the French was defeated could allow the US to successfully invade all of Vietnam. And then their territories would be big enough to threaten Russia and China. As a result, greed took over the US, which was why both President Nixon and Johnson did not do anything during the war until the situation got out of control. Despite all, it is indeed the war that allowed the unification of Vietnam today. In conclusion, all countries have their own perspective in terms of what they fought for in the war, but it is still undeniable that it had caused major damages to the past and present. Vietnam was only a puppet during the war, whereas it was the actual outcome of the conflict between democracy and communism. Vietnam wanted independence after World War II, but they were divided by different ideologies due to the different perspective of different countries.